They called him a failure long before he ever stepped onto a pitch as a coach. It wasn't an opinion, it was a diagnosis. Failed exams, failed relationships, a string of jobs that never stuck. His life was a chronicle of things that fell apart. But the deepest wound, the one that truly defined him, was the game. His one shot at being a player ended not in a stadium, but in a physio's office, being told he'd never have the same acceleration again. He wasn't just cut from the team, he was erased. He walked into the locker room to find his boots already cleared out, tossed into a cardboard box marked lost and found. He was officially lost property, unclaimed, unwanted. His first desperate foray into coaching was a performance. He tried to be the coach he thought they wanted, a confident, tactical mastermind. He filled a thick binder with complex diagrams and passing networks stolen from the great European clubs. The director of football, a man with a weary face, let him talk for 10 nervous minutes before slowly sliding the binder back across the desk. "Son," he said, "this is impressive, but it's just theory. We don't need a librarian, we need a leader." The silence that followed was more humiliating than any shout. He had been measured against his past and found to be the same man. That night, he sat on the same rain-slicked curb he'd occupied after his injury. The same feeling of worthlessness washed over him. But this time, something broke differently. The facade of the mastermind shattered completely, and what was left was the raw, unvarnished truth. He was a failure. He knew the texture of failure, its taste, its weight. And he realized that his intimate knowledge of the abyss was his only unique qualification. He stopped trying to outrun his story. He decided to build from it. When he first walked onto the cracked asphalt of the local training ground, he saw not a team, but a reflection. 22 individuals, each carrying their own version of his story. The kid deemed too small, the teenager with a bad attitude, the young man with no football intelligence. They were a collection of other people's rejections. He didn't shout, he didn't command. He called them into a ragged circle and he spoke his truth. He told them about the lost and found box. He told them about the binder. He looked them in the eye and said, "Your file says you're not good enough. My file says the same thing. So we have a choice. We can live down to their expectations, or we can build our own damn standard. We have nothing left to lose but our fear." In that moment, the foundation was laid. It wasn't built on the promise of victory, but on the solidarity of shared struggle. This was radical honesty. Before any tactics, he had to know what he was working with, not just their skills, but their souls. His assessment was a deep, multi-layered audit. He ran them until their lungs burned, and then he gave them a ball. Why? Because anyone can look good when they're fresh. He needed to see who they were when they were broken. He put them in tight spaces with 12 balls and a stopwatch, not to test their skill, but to test their composure under chaos. He watched for the ghosts, the flinch before a tackle, the eyes looking down after a mistake. He wasn't judging them. He was diagnosing them. His diagnosis was revolutionary. He didn't see a lazy defender. He saw a player with a delayed reaction time due to poor body orientation. He didn't see a selfish striker. He saw a player with low perceptual breadth. These weren't moral failures. They were technical problems. And technical problems have solutions. He began to group players by archetypes, not positions. The engine, with endless stamina. The architect, with a mind for passing. The artist, magical in tight spaces. The anchor, strong and vocal. The team was no longer a list of names. It was a collection of potential functions, waiting to be assembled. His training ground became a laboratory of purpose. Every single minute was sacred. There was no jog and stretch. There was no aimless keep ball. Every exercise was engineered with a clear objective: purpose, stimulus, outcome. He took the simple rondo and turned it into a gladiator arena for the mind. It started simply: 5 versus 2, 2 touch, to establish rhythm. Then 1 touch only, forcing quicker decisions. Then he introduced the humiliation rule. If you gave the ball away, you had to stand in the center of the circle and state your error aloud. I passed without looking. This wasn't about shame, it was about accountability. It was vaccinating them against the fear of failure by making them face it publicly and then move on. Finally, he made it directional. The rondo now had target zones. To score, they had to complete passes and then play a penetrative pass forward. Possession with a purpose. This 16-minute sequence trained technical skill, cognitive speed, psychological resilience, and tactical intelligence all at once. But his masterpiece was the flip moment. He believed that 10 seconds after a turnover decided more matches than any set piece. He set up an 8v8 game. One team would attack for 30 seconds. Then at a random moment, he'd scream "flip" and kick a second ball to the defending team's goalkeeper. They now had 10 seconds to score in the opposite direction. It was chaos engineered. He would freeze the play. You were the 8. Your job was to cut the passing lane, not chase the ball. He was wiring their brains for instantaneous, collective decision-making under extreme stress. He was building a shared instinct. With the human material assessed and the mental framework laid, he introduced the architecture, his tactical blueprint, a 4-2-3-1 that could fluidly morph into a 3-4-3 in possession. It was a secure, predictable structure that allowed for creative, unpredictable. The heart of it was the double pivot. This wasn't just 2 midfielders, it was a symbiotic partnership. On the left, the ball progressor, the architect. His 3 non-negotiable behaviors. 1, always be an escape route for the left back. 2, live in the left half space between the opposition's lines. 3, in the counterpress, immediately cover the central left diagonal passing lane. On the right, the shield pivot, the sentinel. His 3 laws: 1, break opponent attacks with aggressive, first-time tackles. 2, maintain the shield between the center backs and the opposition's attack. 3, rotate laterally to cover for the advanced right back, unlocking the wide outlet. They were the brain and the brawn, one creating, the other destroying. Their press wasn't a mindless chase. It was a predator's ambush, triggered by specific, trained cues. A backward pass, a player receiving with his back to goal, a bouncing 50-50 ball. When the trigger was pulled, it was a synchronized hunt. The nearest forward became a wolf, cutting off the escape route. The nearest midfielder closed in for the kill. The rest of the pack shifted as one, trapping the prey. They trained this with a 7v7 game, where the only way to score was from a turnover created within 6 seconds of a trigger. This wired the response directly to the reward. To break down stubborn defenses, he installed his master key, third man acceleration. It was a simple idea that required exquisite timing. Player A passes to player B. As player B receives, a defender moves to press him. At the exact moment the defender commits, player C accelerates into the space the defender just vacated. Player B plays a first-time pass into that space. They practice this single pattern 100 times a week from the left, the right, and through the center. The focus was on the timing of the run, a choreographed explosion until it was muscle memory. It was the footballing equivalent of a perfectly executed sleight of hand. But he knew that tactics were useless if the human beings executing them didn't trust each other implicitly. Culture was the operating system that ran the tactical software. He built a brotherhood through ritual. The day started with a 2-minute silence. Before any talk of football, each player stated a non-football intention for the day. I will call my father. I will finish my homework. This reinforced that they were people first, athletes second, building empathy and discipline from the ground up. Before every session, they gathered around a single laminated card. On it were 3 words: accountability, courage, craft. Each player signed it with a dry erase marker. It was a physical contract. Accountability meant owning your mistake in front of the group, just like in the rondo. Courage meant being the one to demand the ball when the press was at its most intense. Craft meant staying after training to do 50 more crosses, even when you were tired. The most powerful ritual was a water circle, 15 minutes before kickoff. The team would form a tight circle. A single water bottle was passed around. As each player drank, he would make a promise to the team. If my touch is off, I will win every header. If I get beaten, I will track back and make the tackle. This transformed performance from an individual responsibility into a social contract. You were not just playing for yourself. You were fulfilling a public vow to your brothers. He abolished the traditional captaincy. He believed leadership was a burden to be shared, not a crown to be worn. He created a council of 3, a defensive captain for organization, an attacking captain for triggering the press and setting the tempo, and a mental captain, a senior player who checked on morale and off-field issues. These roles rotated monthly. This created empathy, as a defender had to learn the responsibilities of an attacker. And it created dozens of leaders, all with a stake in the team's success. He wasn't building followers, he was forging an army of leaders. And when they failed, when they conceded a soft goal, the old culture of blame was forbidden. Instead, they ran the restoration protocol. The player most directly at fault was given a restorative task. The striker who missed a sitter would lead the finishing drill the next day. The defender who lost his man would organize a set-piece defensive session. This was not punishment, it was channeling. It took the negative energy of guilt and shame and redirected it into positive, skill-building action that benefited the entire group. It was a reset button for the mind. The ultimate test was the final. The opponent was the prestigious academy that had discarded him as a boy. On the opposing bench sat the director who had called him a librarian. The narrative was almost too heavy to bear. They went 1-0 down to a fortunate deflection just before halftime. Walking into the locker room, he could feel the ghost of their collective past. The shoulders were slumped. The eyes were downcast. This was the moment the old story was supposed to repeat itself. He walked to the center of the room and waited for silence. He didn't raise his voice. "Look at me," he said, his voice calm. "I have been here. This is the feeling. This is the moment they expect the failures to fail. But we are not who we were. We have a contract on that laminated card. We have promises we made in the water circle. We have 45 minutes, 1/2 of football to write the final chapter of our story." His one tactical adjustment was for his star attacking midfielder, who had been marked out of the game. "They are terrified of you," he told him. "So stop trying to beat your man. Every time you get the ball, draw your marker and a second defender, and then release the ball early. Be the decoy. Create the space for others." The second half was a testament to the entire system. The equalizer came from a rehearsed corner, a near post flick played by their smallest player, finished at the far post. It was revenge for 1,000 childhood failures. The winner came in the 88th minute. It was the system, perfected. The shield pivot won a first-time tackle. He found the ball progressor. The progressor played a line-breaking pass to the decoy number 10, who drew 2 defenders. As they closed him down, the right back, arriving from deep, accelerated into the vast space behind them. A perfect third-man run. The decoy played a simple, first-time pass. The right back took 1 touch and smashed the ball home. It was a goal of selflessness, of trust, of a system executed under extreme fatigue and pressure. When the final whistle blew, the roar was deafening. But the players didn't just run to each other, they turned as one, a single organism, and ran to the touchline. They found him, the failure, the librarian, the architect, and they lifted him onto their shoulders, carrying him toward the trophy he had never been allowed to touch as a player. The man whose face had been scratched out was now the center of the universe. The trophy was shiny. The photos were taken. But the real victory was invisible. It was in the culture he built. It was in the boy who became a leader, the failure who became a founder. It was in the laminated card carefully stored in a young player's bag, a sacred relic of a promise kept. This isn't just a story about football, it's a story about potential. The potential that lies dormant in every rejected person, every failed idea, every broken dream. The secret was never a secret. It was the long, hard, unglamorous arc. It was measuring instead of shouting. It was diagnosing instead of blaming. It was drilling with purpose instead of hoping for inspiration. It was building a culture where failure was not a verdict, but the most valuable data point on the path to growth. You have a choice. You can see the rubble of your failures, or you can see the raw materials for your masterpiece. Greatness is not a gift bestowed upon a lucky few. It is a painstakingly built edifice, laid brick by brick, day by day, through ritual and relentless repetition. Your story is not written by your failures. It is written by what you choose to build with the rubble. So pick up your tools. Your blueprint is waiting. Go build.